Hello everyone, my name is Leah Smith, and today I want to just start by discussing a major example of lone wolf terrorism, the 2011 Norway attacks that were carried out by Anders Breivik. First, let's walk through the concept of what lone wolf terrorism is, and what happens during this tragic event, and the impact it has on society and public safety, as well as what lessons we can learn in the aftermath of such events. Let's start by defining what lone wolf terrorism is. Lone wolf terrorism, it refers to terroristic acts that are committed by an individual who act independently of any official organization or group or network. These individuals typically plan and execute attacks alone, although they may be ideologically influenced by other extremist groups or any online propaganda. They typically work alone. A lot of key characteristics of a lone wolf terrorist could include operating alone with direct support or orders from an organization. They're often radicalized online and through a lot of personal experiences. Their motives can be political, religious, racial, and a mix of different ideologies. It's something that is harder to detect due to the absence of communication with other known terrorist groups. What makes lone wolves so particularly dangerous is they can be very unpredictable, and their ability to blend into our society until it is time for that moment of attack. So let's start to talk about the 2011 Norway attacks. The event I'm focusing on happened on July 22, 2011. Norway attacks carried out by Anders Breivik. Breivik first set off a car bomb outside of the government quarters in Oslo, and this killed 8 people and injured many others. Then he dressed as a police officer as he traveled to Utana Island, where the party's youth camp was being held. There, he began to open fire and killed 69 people, and most of them were teenagers. So Breivik's ideology was rooted in far-right extremism, and he was fiercely anti-Islam and anti-immigration, and he viewed the Lumbar Party as responsible for allowing multiculturalism into Norway. And in a very lengthy manifesto he published online, he expressed and stated about a desire to start a new revolution against what he liked to call cultural Marxism and Islamic influence in Europe. He was later arrested in Untala after surrendering to the police, and in 2012 he was sentenced to around 21 years in prison, which is Norway's maximum sentence, though it can be extended indefinitely if he is still considered a threat. Now, I want to talk about what the long-term and short-term effects may be. In the short term, Norway and much of Europe were in a lot of shock. The scale and the brutality of these attacks, especially the murder of so many young people, generated an intense media coverage and a lot of public mourning. There was also a huge public debate about far-right extremism, xenophobia, and how isolated individuals could carry out so many horrendous acts. Now, in the terms of public safety, the attacks revealed vulnerabilities in Norway's emergency response systems and law enforcement preparedness. It led to stronger coordination among Norwegian's intelligence and counterterrorism agencies. However, in the long term, the attacks continue to reshape how we think about terrorism in the Western world. Because up until then, most of the counterterrorism had been on Islamist extremists. Breivik's actions forced a lot of policymakers and security agents to also prioritize domestic terrorism and right-wing radicalization. To continue from a Homeland Security perspective, the Norway attacks had a lot of significant implications. Also, Europe and even in the United States government has begun to reassess that these threats of such lone wolf actors and far-right extremists could lead to a lot of increased funding for monitoring extremist groups, greater emphasis on counter-radicalization programs, and more investment in intelligence gathering and surveillance of online extremist communities. It can also spark a lot of conversation about how to balance civil liberties and national security, especially in liberal democracies, but that's up for more debate. So a lot of the lessons learned and preventions that I think we could use is, what I think we learned was, one major takeaway could have been the ideological violence is not limited to just organized groups. Lone wolf individuals can cause devastating harm when driven by hate and other radical ideas. So, to prevent these similar incidents, several strategies I think can be proposed, such as enhancing early warning systems, including monitoring online behavior, promoting a lot of community-based intervention programs that identify and help at-risk individuals at risk for radicalization. And I also think by improving our law enforcement response times and training for active shooter situations, we can help encourage public awareness without inciting fear or stigma. So ultimately, fighting a lot of lone wolf terrorism requires a combination of not only intelligence, but community and engagement. But it can also be used in addressing the causes of these extremist ideologies. To conclude my video, in the 2011 Norway attacks, they were considered a wake-up call. They showed us that terrorism isn't always just foreign or religiously motivated. Sometimes these threats can come from within, from individuals who feel like they are misheard and who feel justified in using violence to advance what they believe in twisted ways. And so by understanding how and why lone wolf terrorists act is probably one of the most critical ways we can hope to stop them in further future situations. Thank you.